Zoar. Zoar was established or founded in 1817 by a group of German immigrants who came here seeking religious freedom. They were known as the separatists or Zoarites, and in 1819, as a group, voted to make this a communal village. So at one point, from then on, till the village dissolved, it was a communal village. I'm going to introduce you now to the Zoar Hotel, which was built in 1833. Before we get started on the tour, I always like to point out that this was not the first hotel. The first hotel is today what is known as the Canal Tavern of Zoar. There, the hotel was built on a little knoll or a little hill that overlooked the Ohio Erie Canal. And that is where the passengers or guests would get off and stay. The trustees decided it was just a little bit too far away from the village. They needed a hotel in the village. This was completed then in 1833, where the trustees could keep a watchful eye over everything that would have been going on in and around the hotel. What we're going to do is I'm going to take you up around the hotel, and we will stop in the back. But as you follow me, I always like to stop right here. You notice where the doors are. You could lift the doors up. Cellar steps, basement or cellar was underneath the hotel. They used it for their supplies and things that would have been needed in the hotel. Side point, and many of you might remember this. I know my husband and I came here quite a bit in the 1970s, 80s. The basement or cellar was a bar, and we loved to come here. It was very, very unique. You could go down, sit, just soak up the atmosphere. There was a U-shaped bar. A lot of friends gathered here. Food was good, but what was especially fun, there was live entertainment. So it was a great place to come, and I can see with some of you that are here, you at one time have been there. I always get a nice, oh yes, we remember that. Right here, this was the original part of the hotel here. Section that runs all the way back. In time, this was about 1860. In time, the hotel was no longer big enough. They needed more room. So they extended the dining room. The kitchen would have been back there. And on the second floor, there were additional rooms to take care of the overflow. So if you want to follow me and be careful as we walk around the building. We get around to the other side, and I'm going to try to explain what is no longer here. It's gone, and other things that are still here. And also, if anybody has a question at all, just raise your hand or get my attention, and I'll do my best to get you the answers. We are now at the back of the hotel, and at one point in time, the veranda or the porch would have came all the way out, and there were tables set up here where if you wanted to come out to have your meal or play cards, a lot of friendships started right around that time where the guests decided we're going to come back again next year, and plans were made to return again the next year. What is gone? At one time there was a laundry here that took care of all the laundry needs in the hotel. There was also an ice house. And what is amazing about the ice house, during the winter months, the gentlemen would go down and dig trenches or just little waterways for the river to come off and into the fields. They would then go down, chop up the ice, bring it here, put it in the house, and in July and August, in the hottest months of the summer, you could come out here and get ice. They packed it in sawdust, so the ice was always here, readily available. There was also a barn, a couple of barns. Horses were kept there, the separatist horses, as well as horses that the guests would have had. Buggies were also put away in a barn to keep them out of the weather. What is still here, however, if you want to look this way, blacksmith, building furthest down, blacksmith and the wagon shop. These buildings are both still here, and that is where they would have been. Directly behind us, you can see this building right here. That was the cider mill. It's now an original home that people are calling a home, so it's no longer the cider mill, but that is where it would have been. Zoar was known as a village in apple trees, so they had ample supply of apples to make their cider. Also, too, I'm trying to remember, it seems to me at one point in time, the jailhouse was also somewhere in the area. And many people, you might have wondered, well, why did they come? And who were they? They were, and the whole range of people would come. Been very important people here. Some very, very rich who could come and be here 2 or 3 weeks at a time. They called this their summer resort and loved to be here. Then you would have had the families who possibly saved up their nickels and dimes just for a weekend. Then, of course, the travelers on the canal boats, who were called the canalers, would have maybe just been here for a meal and overnight. But everybody came, everybody returned, and why? Why did they come? What was the attraction here? Well, I like to think some of it was curiosity, like today, how many of us like to go into Amish country, where we can visit the Amish and see how they lived and go into their shops to get the different things that would have been the same here. Oh, let's go visit that strange group of people in Zoar. It's communal. Let's just go see how they live, what they're like. Just get a taste of what it would have been like. Also, there was an attraction here. It was very, very popular. Maybe later you could visit. It's the garden. It's right in the center of the village. All kinds of flowers. And then again, July and August, they are in full bloom. There are paths that you could walk through, benches that you could set, and the garden house. The greenhouse was here. Now keep in mind, this is the late 1820s, and there were not many greenhouses around that time. The separatists called it the hot house, and because it was heated, they could have tropical trees here. So there were lemon trees, lime trees, orange trees. We have a banana tree right now in it. And because it was heated in the winter, they could, everybody come and visit this greenhouse. Toward that direction, you're going toward Mineral City. We're not exactly sure where it's at. There was a sulfur spring. And at that sulfur spring, they built a building over top of it, and it was said that it helped with arthritis and rheumatism. So many people were coming here just for treatments that they felt they were getting there. Also, big main point, they were treated like royalty. Everybody was greeted with a friendly smile, a happy face, and were just treated in such a way that you had to come back. We're going to start now and go on around, and we'll be going into the hallway at the front of the hotel. But I want to warn, I've had other groups here, and there are people who have been here who remembered what the hotel looked like in the early 1900s. And it's not the same today. You're going to go in, and many of you are going to be shocked. The outside of the building looks fairly nice, but the inside, believe me, is gutted. And you're going to have, I hate to say this, a rude awakening. So I just like to warn people before we get into the hotel. So if you follow me, I'll take you on around and go into the front door. Again, take a look at the hotel. It's so magnificent. Now, I can officially welcome you to the hotel. This would have been the main hallway. These are the original steps that take us on up to the second and to the third floor. We are right now going to be going in to the area that would have been the dining room. And just try to visualize what it would have looked like in the 1880s. We can't really tell that now. As you notice, we have got pillars set up here that are actually holding the second floor up. But this whole section here, 3/4 of the way back, you would have had tables set up for the guests to have their meals, snowy white tablecloths, glistening dishes and silverware, and a smiling young lady coming to get anything that you would like to order from the menu. The girls were dressed somewhat like what I'm wearing, not quite the same, but they were there to see that you had a very enjoyable meal. There was a lot of controversy right here among the villagers because the hotel got the best of everything. Choice food. The dairy was just right across the street, such right behind what is the store. They had Devonshire cattle here, so there was fresh milk every day. They made their butter, they made their cheese. That would have been brought over. At the north end of the village, there were bakers who were baking bread, so you were getting fresh bread every day, along with, in time, cookies, pretzels. The gingerbread was especially tasty here. And then there was something that I would like to sample sometime soon. That was your black pudding. A lot of people talked about the black pudding. I would have preferred the gingerbread myself. Everything was grown here. Vegetables, cabbage, potatoes, all the ripe, fresh vegetables. They had a herd of beef cattle, so the beef was here along with chicken, eventually pork. They had pigs here, and eventually pork was also being served. But as I mentioned before, everybody here got the best. And there were some in the village that felt that's not quite fair. We're the ones working, we're the ones toiling, and the visitors are getting the best part. But I think just about every day and age you're going to have people who are satisfied and people who are not satisfied. Also, too, in the beginning, the children were kept completely away from the visitors who were here. They felt that it would have been a bad influence. Of course, by the 1890s, it got to the point where there's visitors everywhere, and that just didn't hold anymore. But in the beginning, they did their best. Railroad got here in the 1880s, and when that happened, the village was flooded with guests and visitors. We're going to leave this section now and go over. I'm going to take you just across the hall. We are going to go into this room. Now, this room was a variety of things through the years. But at one point, there was a bar here. Being good Germans that they were, they made their beer. They had a brewery here, made their beer, grew hops right here in the village. So hops, malt, barley, pure, fresh, clear spring water made up their ingredients for beer. And from what I have read, it was quite tasty. And as with every establishment, there are rules and regulations. And they had that here. On this side, it's in German. On this side, it's in English. And you had to conduct yourself a certain way. I especially like the one that brings out, it is expected that visitors or travelers will observe in the utmost care the rooms that they are in, and it is our desire or wish that if you need to smoke, you go outside. So you see, when we get to the 3rd floor, if I forget, just somebody mention, okay, you pointed out the fact that they didn't want them smoking in here. Could you give me the answer to that? And I will then tell you why they decided there should be no smoking in the village. Many innkeepers, but the family we're mostly concerned with, were prominent between the 1870s on until the village dissolved, and that was the Roof family. Christian Roof, his wife Mother Mary, and 3 of their children, Salome, Lillian, and Edgar, had a big part in running the hotel. I'm just going to pass these pictures around, but this is Mother Mary. They called her Mother Mary. She was well loved in the village. She was always ready to extend or giving a helping hand to people who needed that helping hand. The children, they had a home here, but I like to think that the children probably grew up right here in the hotel because the family was always here. This was Edgar, and this is a picture of Lillian, who at one time was also a hostess here, and she married William Bymiller. So then she later became a Bymiller. But they were here, ran the hotel extensively. Right close to 1890, 1891, the village was beginning to get in trouble. Financial difficulties, as well as other things that were later going to cause or be the reason why they dissolved. We can't go into all of that, but they were beginning to have financial difficulties. Again, the hotel was no longer big enough. They had to have more room. In fact, some of the guests were being put up into some of their homes right inside the village. Suggestion was made, let's build on to the hotel. No, we can't have that happen. It's big enough. We don't need more people here roaming around, causing disturbances. And for quite a while, it was back and forth until finally it got to the point where, and these were the exact words that were mentioned, that addition will be a gold mine. We've got to put it on. As a result, there were 50 rooms built on to the hotel. Now, the Separatists did not build the hotel. They contracted. So the care was not there, the quality was not there, and it was not near as put together as what the original hotel was. This is just a picture. This is the original, and here was the 50 rooms that were added. It was Victorian, and I've heard the description, it was an eyesore. It just did not fit into a German village. And in time, those rooms were being filled. But again, keep in mind, you build a building with 50 rooms in 6 months, you're going to be missing a lot of the quality that needed to be in other buildings. And it was completed. People were going in 1892. 1898, again, the village dissolved, so it only kept them afloat for maybe 6 more years. And still, they had to dissolve the village. With the village dissolving, I think they tried to divide it as equally as they could, being very fair about it, and there was probably some very unhappy moments and fearful. People now had to start taking care of themselves. They were no longer a part of a communal group. With the hotel, the Roof family took as their share the hotel and continued to run it as such. Mother Mary died in 1919. Lillian lived till 1942. We want to just take a brief pause right now. We will come back and continue on with the tour later.